All right. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for joining me, Ryan. I was going to ask how you did, but we were talking about how you're doing right before we started, so we don't really need to, to do that again.
Yeah, not bad.
There we go. That's the summary. Ryan Cohen's on the podcast. Talk about the San Jose Sharks. Ryan Cohen is a teammate of mine on our sketch team, Night Church. So let's go into Sharks. I'll let you lead. Why do the Sharks suck?
Oh man, so many reasons. Uh, I would say the Sharks suck because they are so perennially talented and so enormously underachieving. Like like this past season was really bad, but before that, for pretty much as long as I can remember, every season just about they are a Stanley Cup contender, and every season except for really one season, they completely failed those expectations, like
Right.
utterly. So that's
Yeah.
that's why I would say they suck.
They're like I feel like they're almost the Western Conference Senators in a way, like the way the Senators like for like a decade and a half were a dominant team in the regular season, and
Yeah,
then the playoffs just come around and like maybe second round, maybe they make the conference finals, but never get over the hurdle. And then when they do, they did that one time and they lost handedly in the finals.
exactly.
That seems to be a pattern there.
Yeah,
But
it's yeah,
yeah, go
permanent
on.
heartbreak. It's just the only way I could describe it. They get your
So
hopes up and then they crush them.
yeah. So what is there like for all those like late playoff run crushing blows, or even like some of the shocking early round ones? Like, is there a consistent pattern over the years of what the Sharks can't get done in the playoffs?
You know, I feel like it kind of is different every year. Um, the thing that I think fails them, especially more recently, is like a consistent sort of like out of nowhere lack of offense. Like the
Hmm.
Sharks usually have so much firepower, it seems, right? Like that, like depending on the coach, they've kind of shifted the way they approached it. But in like the early years, they were they'd have like Joe Thornton centering one line and like Marleau on the other line, and put like Pavelski with one guy, and like they spread the offense out, and then after a few years of that not working, fire the coach, bring in a new coach, and he puts Marlowe and like Thornton on one line together, and they're just like loaded it up, and then you got Burns, and like one of like there's just so much offense even from the defense, and
Right.
then the moment that like the playoffs hit, it just goes like by the wayside.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I like that you talked about offense on the defense because one of the things I remember, it was like 3 years ago at this point when Eric Carlson was on, speaking of the Senators, was on
Yes.
the Senators. He like single handedly carried them to the conference finals that they had no business being in. But they beat the Rangers to get there. So I remember watching him being like, this man is a freaking unbelievable force of nature. And you already had Brett Burns, and so when he signed with the Sharks, I'm like, oh, they're going to be unstoppable. And then
Yeah.
it just nothing. It fell apart. I don't know even how that happened.
I trust me, it's like a constant head scratcher. And like I love Carlson so much just because I mean, I played hockey. I played hockey since I was 4, right? So it's something that I still play, love it. And I've always been I play wing, I play forward, and I'm fast. That's like I was never like super accurate with my shot or anything, but I just always was one of the fastest guys on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like love and appreciate I feel like I have like a deeper appreciation for just like beautiful skaters. And
Right.
Carlson is one of the most beautiful skaters in the league. He reminds me of like Dan Boyle. He was also on the Sharks, who was a beautiful skater, defensive, like offensive defenseman.
Right.
Um, and yeah, so I was so excited when they added him. I was like, we're gonna have so much offense coming from the back line, from the blue line, and that season, I think that was the season that we got him. I don't think it was the season that we made the Stanley Cup, but um, he was like nothing for like the entire regular season. Like he was so bad when we got him. And then the playoffs came and he turned it like, switched gears, which was great to see. But it just like for so long felt like another guy that we got that like, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a culture thing or what, but he just like fell apart.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how. Just and that was. I remember the year the Sharks made the finals was the same year that Carlson had that run to the conference finals where they lost to the Penguins.
Mhm.
Again, had no business being there. But yeah, it's so weird. I don't know. It's not like he did not have the support in Ottawa that he had in San Jose. Like there was nothing around that team. I don't. Is it something where it's like he because he some players I feel like when they're not the guy, they're the guy, like they're better. But he seems like someone who, I don't know, is it because they had Burns, that he wasn't like the main focal point necessarily of how that team operates? Was that? I'm just speculating here. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's the case.
I think that's kind of a good observation. Like I haven't thought too deeply about it. It just was something that I think if I honestly don't remember super well, but I think he might have been dealing with some injuries that season in the regular season, too. But but yeah, maybe it's a system thing. I don't know. Like he came, I think, like right in the middle of the Pete DeBoer like era, and he was the guy who kind of like rearranged the offense so that he was putting like he was making it real top heavy.
Right.
And yeah, for whatever reason, I guess like I mean like it wasn't he just was kind of like invisible for a large part of the season. Like not like making any like egregious mistakes or anything like that, but he just kind of like he wasn't the offensive player you're used to. There wasn't like as many like end to end rushes and
Right.
stuff like that. So yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, it might have also been like a sort of complex where Burns is the guy, and so maybe he just like felt like he had to take more of a backseat. Who knows?
Yeah. It's just so strange to me. And I'm even like 2019. I feel like they had a good run. That I think they lost the Knights that year, right, in the playoffs.
Um,
Not
I
this.
think
Not
so. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember just that was like a really good series too. But it was just. But yeah, it was watching watching that team, who I feel like, even if they were, in the last few years when, Marleau and Thornton got older, they were still like playing hard and they were
Mhm.
still competitive. So I don't even, I mean, like, they didn't even make the bubble this year. I don't even like what happened. How did It was such an ugly year for California hockey in general, but the Sharks were like the team I thought, all right, if any team is going to not shit the bed in California, it's going to be the Sharks. But then even they just, I don't even know what happened.
Yeah, they were just bad. Like I don't get it either. Like Marlowe was obviously gone. There were some injuries and stuff like that too, and they lost Hurdle at some point. I think it was like mid season. I think when Hurdle like tore his ACL, and he
Right.
was like a lot of their offense during that time. But yeah, I don't know what happened. I didn't watch a ton of games from that because when I shit you not, I turned on I watched a few games and they had already started losing, and they just like looked like their hearts weren't in it. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like it just like did not look like a team that was interested in like doing well,
right.
which is such a sad like
Mm.
state of affairs, especially
Uh,
for a team who has like for a decade been right there every season.
yeah. Even I, who's not doesn't really have an opinion one way or the other Sharks, my heart dropped when you put it that way. It was just a little bit, just like, oh, it's like their window, which they had, is basically. I mean, I don't know if it's completely closed, but it's just like getting Thornton ring is just looks like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
And
now
it's
he's gone.
Yeah, and now he's gone.
End of
So
an era.
yeah, it is the end of an era, and obviously the Rangers are dealing with that too with Lundqvist. So
Mm.
it's which is their eras sort of collide in a lot of ways. But
Yeah, we can commiserate.
we can commiserate about end of an era. But in terms of like, yeah, I mean, like, so what is that like? What is would you say like Thornton and, because I feel like Thornton Marlowe's legacy may be tied together, but you
Yeah.
would know more than me. Like, what distinguishes the two of them, and what would you say each of their legacy is for Sharks fans?
Yeah, I definitely think that for Sharks fans, they're intertwined, like inextricably linked. Like you can't really divorce them from each other. Because I mean, even Thornton, like he obviously wasn't a Shark, like on the Sharks from the start of his career. Like he had a great
Right.
career before getting there.
Yeah.
But it's he achieved the most greatness there, and it was like in tandem with Marlowe. And Marlowe will go down as probably the best Sharks player ever just because he holds every single record. Like he played for the Sharks for literally like 20 years, I think, and he's
Right.
he just will always be like our golden boy. I was always a Thornton fan because Thornton and I had sort of similar play style. Even though I was talking about being like speedy, since I didn't have a good shot, I was also like just loved passing.
Right.
And Thornton is like the ultimate like point forward
Right.
when it comes to hockey. So I loved his play, but Marlowe will always be like the favorite of Sharks fans. I feel like.
Yeah, that's interesting. I remember Thornton in on the Bruins, and just
Mhm.
that was in high school. Given how long, that's just a testament. That's my age, but also a testament to how long Joe Thornton's been around. But they're one of
Yeah,
them.
no kidding.
I remember one of the most iconic moments of the Rangers in my high school years. And the Rangers were very bad when I was in high school, but
Mhm.
and this was like Eric Lindros was such a failure on the Rangers. But at one point, he got into a fight and broke Thornton's jaw, and I was like, all right, that we broke a jaw of the Bruins' best player. So that, At least that happened. But
Yeah,
then, yeah, and then
small victories.
he did. I don't think I've ever seen anyone win an MVP trophy in a year he was traded. But I remember that it was like the
Yeah.
first year after the lockout, and he was traded like I don't know, like November maybe, and he just was that was like the beginning of the Thornton era. Obviously, I mean, obviously it was
Mhm.
his first year, but he won the Hart Trophy that first year.
Yeah, I mean, and it was just so insane watching that guy, just because like it just dimes all over the ice. Like I think he had like 100 assists that season.
Yeah,
It was something like insane and like something that felt untouchable. You know what I mean? So and that era was great too for the Sharks. Like that was when Doug Wilson was there, and they had they still had Nabokov in goal,
yeah,
and like it's like I said, for almost as long as I can remember, this has been a team that every year was like maybe not the favorite to win the Stanley Cup, but they had a shot and a good
right,
shot. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where you almost are like, I've been burned too many times, I can't
right.
get into it, and then they drag you in, and then they break your heart. Like
Yeah.
every time, it's the ultimate beautiful ex girlfriend situation or something.
Yeah. Let's talk about Sharks fans and the culture there. Because the way it's been described to me, and you can be wrong, that it's like, there's like, I don't know, like a very small number relative to the area, but those fans are like in it 100%, which is hockey in general. But I feel like Sharks fans in particular are like, it's a lower number, but the passion is like out of control. That's my general perception of Sharks fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's hockey in the Bay Area is pretty big. Like it's surprising like how popular it is, but in terms of fervent support is like, yeah, you have a very very extremely passionate fan base that like is obviously smaller in numbers than it would be for teams that are like back east or something like that, but still huge. The issue is just that in the Bay Area, much like in LA, there's so much to do and so many teams and stuff that like hockey always is going to kind of come, second or third fiddle to the other stuff. But yeah, I mean, I played and participated in it, my whole life. I, have met tons of players and played at their camps and played against their sons and stuff, and it's always been popular there, but it's only grown really since I was actually living in the Bay Area as a kid.
Yeah. It's weird, interesting. I don't know, because I don't think you're from San Jose proper, right? You're
No, yeah,
from
I'm from East Bay, so I'm from like, it's like I grew up like 20 minutes from San Jose, but I used to play against the San Jose Junior Sharks, tons of tournaments there.
Yeah, because I always remember, like, I only have been to San Jose proper once, and I
Mhm.
was like, oh, this is like a top. This is literally, I think, the 10th most populated city in America. And I had a friend who was from San Jose. Remember, like, I was there on like a Friday night. Like, what's there doing on a Friday night? And she was like, I don't know, is the mall open? And it was just like, how is a city this big, like, so like identityless? It was just so
Yeah,
strange to me.
that's funny. I haven't really thought about it like that, but it is very, very true. Like they're really like San Jose is. I think it's like the third biggest city in California too. Like it's like the
Yeah,
biggest city. It's like the most populous city in the Bay Area, but it's really just sort of, yeah. It's not. There's not a whole lot that's interesting there besides the Sharks and like San Jose State, I guess. And the
yeah.
earthquakes. If watch
Yeah,
American
really,
soccer.
really outside the Sharks, are really starving for options in San Jose.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's because it's the Bay Area in general. It feels like yeah, but there. I mean, and also I guess yeah, I was gonna say East Bay doesn't have it, but they have all the Oakland teams, so they definitely have that. Well, now they have one Oakland team, I think.
yeah,
But
yeah.
well, yeah, well two if you count the Warriors, I guess. Are they in?
They moved to San Francisco,
Oh
so
yeah, and they did. You're right. So
yeah,
now it's just
just the A's.
A's and the Sharks are the only East Bay teams, I guess, at this
Well,
point.
the Sharks, I guess, technically would be South Bay, but
Yeah,
if we're splitting hairs here,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean that's all the East Bay's got. Although they did just get like I forget what league it is, but they just got a soccer team.
Oh yeah,
It's not like the top soccer team, like the top tier league, but the like one below that.
yeah. Like the USMNL, I think is what
Yeah,
it
something like
is.
that. But yeah, they got
It's like
the Oakland Roots is their name. It's
yeah.
pretty cool.
All right, we're inching towards more there, so
Yeah.
that's good. But yeah, but it is something. I remember seeing a stat. I remember watching. This is the level of dork I am with hockey, where I was looking like. I was like right after the lockout. I'm like, all right, hockey's going to be relevant. It's going to be popular. It's going to be a huge sport again. And it's like it's got its niche, and I think it's hockey as a sport is generally settled into its niche. But I was looking at like what regions have the highest ratings for like the Winter Classic or something like that. And
Hmm.
Sacramento specifically was way up there, which was
That is
surprising
so
to me.
weird.
Yeah,
I would never expect that to be that big of a hockey team, hockey town. And I used to play up there too, and
Yeah,
they were generally not very good. So that's like
yeah, but they apparently had high rating. Maybe it was just like it was so low that one blip meant like I don't know. But yeah,
maybe like one player in that particular year was like from Sacramento.
that's quite possible. So yeah, so it's just so yeah. So it's just I feel like before this talk I never really sensed like the tragedy of a Sharks fan as much. I never got that sense of like I mean I knew they were always like a competitive team that never won, but I didn't really understand just how hard hitting it was. And so thank you for enlightening me on your pain.
Yeah, I'm always open with my heartbreak, and it's perpetual for the most of my life. The Warriors were the one like saving grace I ever had because up until that point, when they won the finals, I had never won a championship with any of my favorite teams. So it was great.
Yeah, you were yeah, we're both too young to remember when the A's were that level, but
Yeah, I think it was their last World Series was the year I was born. Maybe like
mm,
the year before, I forget. But yeah, it
yeah.
was.
Yeah. Um, so I guess what I want to ask next is where do the A's go? Oh, sorry, the A's. Where do the Sharks go from here? A's have a lot of questions too, but let's talk Sharks specifically. Like, what is so now that it's sort of like that era is over.
Yeah.
It that so sadly it never culminated, and the Sharks do they go through a rebuilding phase? Do they like try to accelerate? Like, you know, what?
I've thought, yeah, I've thought about this, and it's really hard to kind of determine because there still feels like there's a lot of talent there,
Right,
but I think the problem is that it's like middle aged talent, like relative
right,
to like a hockey career. You know what I
right.
mean? Like they have some good young guys, but for the most part, it's guys that are kind of in the middle or like edging towards the tail end of their career. Like Couture is like I guess wrong side of 30, and like Burns. Some of these guys are definitely getting up there. They obviously lost Thornton. He's like a shadow of what he once was. Unfortunately, Marleau's back, which is so insane to me at this point. But like, fuck it, I'll take him.
Right.
But I like the one thing that I do feel like the Sharks really need is depth. Like they just do not have, and for most of the time that I can remember, they've been such a top heavy team, and they have like one really great line and then like a half of a good second line, and then the
Right.
third line is like trash. So I feel like they just really need to like go after some depth somehow. There's a couple guys that are underachievers they could probably get rid of, um, like Sorensen. Sorensen's a guy that just pisses me off. Like he's so fast and like, but I feel like he's on the ice for like every time the Sharks get scored on. I see Sorensen on the ice, so I'm
Yeah.
happy. I would be fine with like trying to see what we can get out of a guy like him, and just trying to get some depth, like some young depth.
Yeah.
And
Do you
also, we
trust?
really
Oh,
need to
sorry. Go ahead.
we also really need to solidify our goaltending. It's been so up and down. Like Martin Jones has had some like seasons where he's been like awesome, and he's had some seasons where I've been like, this guy needs to retire. So that's definitely something that they can like. I mean, if he's not the guy, we need to decide soon.
Right. Yeah, and so I guess I don't know much about like the management, the upper management front office of the Sharks, but do you trust the current front office to get it done?
I don't know. Like I we it's so hard. It's such a because it's not like we've been a bottom dwelling team for a long time or like really ever. You know what I mean? Like in the early mid '90s, Sharks are pretty bad, but like Doug Wilson's been the general manager for the Sharks for as long as I can remember, um, and he's always brought in like talent and cultivated talent. But like it seems like he sometimes it feels a little bit nickel and dimey. They've
Right.
let some guys go and and when there's been like top tier talent available, they haven't like pulled the trigger on those guys. They've kind of been like, well, we have our guys and we'll just like pick up some like mid-level dudes here and there. um so like I feel like they'll never like I have complete faith in them, in him like putting together a team that can compete again. Like I don't think they're going to be as bad this coming season as they were in the shortened like lockout season, or not
Right.
lockout, the COVID season.
Yeah.
um I don't think they'll be at that level at all. But do I think that I think their window is closed, and I don't have really faith in Doug Wilson like making the moves he needs to make to get them back to that contention spot.
Right. Yeah.
And that
I,
might just be me being jaded and like
yeah.
angry, but
It doesn't sound like yeah. I think you like you said you. having faith, hope is a dangerous thing.
Oh yeah,
Hope can drive a man insane, like that whole thing.
yeah.
So, but yeah. So it's interesting. And what would you? So let's talk other teams. So what do you make of the Knights' rise, and how do the Knights make you feel?
So the Knights piss me off because so also, I mean, like a little part of the reason why they piss me off is because my uncle and like a big part of my family live in Vegas, and my uncle for my whole life has been like the biggest Raiders or Sharks fan rather, and just like loved the Sharks. Every time he came to visit us, would be like he would buy a ton of Sharks gear. We would go to games, whatever, and he had like Sharks decals on his truck and whatever else. And then the moment the Knights came, all the decals and all the gear changed to Knight stuff, and so I felt a little bit betrayed. And then they made the Stanley Cup in their first season. But I feel like they just were given such, they were dealt such a great hand, like with the draft,
Right.
um, just because it had never been like set up that way to where they got so many favored picks from like other, not with the, not like, sorry, not the like rookie draft, but like the draft where they were able to like pick players from other
Yeah, the
teams.
expansion draft. Yeah.
Yes, they were just given so much more than any team in the history of the sport ever has been given. Like it should be like a lesson that they like this is something they cannot do with the Seattle team.
Yeah.
Like just because I get and I think it ultimately was good for the league for them to be so good so fast just because like Vegas isn't a hockey town, but they went
Right.
nuts for that team. You know what I mean? Just because they were so good and it built like an infrastructure. Like they have like kids leagues and like my uncle's telling me that all the kids want to play, which is so cool
Right.
for my sport. But like it just pisses me off that they were so good so fast and they
Right.
didn't deserve it.
Yeah, I feel like every Pacific Division hockey fan, which I know we're friends with one, and then there's like three others who I know. So I'm
Yeah.
judging based on that. But I'm pretty sure all the people I know who are fans of other teams like the Kings and things like that are just like, what the fuck? How what? It's not even like sentences can't even form. It's like, what the fuck is the Knights? Like, how did
Yeah,
that
it's
happen?
just not fair, man. Just such a stacked team year one. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is it's one of those things where it almost feels like a like the NFL loves the Patriots type thing or whatever. Like, I'm like, all right, like what the owner of the Knights? I don't even know who it is, but how close are him and like the front office of the NHL? What kind of deal they got going on? It starts to get you conspiracy thinking, you know?
Yeah. No, I've been to one Knights game, and I was just like, it was their first year, and I was just like, I just felt that energy. I'm like, this is, I mean, it's been 1 year, and this is already like a hockey powerhouse, and the culture there is already built in. So
Yeah,
I was just like, what? Just how did this happen? And then,
the
like, I
beauty of
was
being
there,
good.
yeah, I was there for like a Rangers game, and Rangers fans travel, and New York douchebags are not going to miss out a chance to go to like me are not going to miss out a chance to go to Vegas with it to watch the Rangers.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I'm worried about with the Raiders. It's a different story entirely. But the Raiders being in Vegas, once fans start coming, I'm so worried that it's just like constantly going to be like away teams. But that's another
yeah,
story. Um, but yeah, like it is absolutely 100% not my style. The whole Knights thing, you know what I mean?
right.
Like with the especially the pregame stuff.
Oh
It's
my
like
god, the
it's
pregame
like a
stuff there is some of is like even by I'm used to a lot of corny shit, but even by that like corny sports shit standards, that was just like, what is that?
it is so ridiculous and over the top, but I also kind of like secretly love it. Like I hate it myself, but I love that it exists because it's just like it's made it into such a spectacle and it fits like the identity of the city of Vegas perfectly. It just is a city that's entirely over the top and superfluous and insane. And so
Yeah,
it like fits even though it's the dumbest thing ever. So like I don't like begrudge them that part, but it really just does piss me off like how good they got so fast to the
right.
point where like it felt like retribution when we beat them in the playoffs. I think it was the next season when we had
Yeah,
that like crazy comeback in the third.
yeah, yeah.
So like, all my, Knights fans, friends and family were just so pissed off and they're like, like that penalty shouldn't have been a 5-minute penalty. And I'm like, my opinion notwithstanding, I don't even care. I'm glad it was. Fuck you.
Yeah, I feel there's part of me. We'll wrap up here, but I feel like there's part of me, even with rivalries. Like if I meet as a Ranger, if I meet like a Flyers or Devils fan, as annoying as I am by them, especially when I'm in California, there's part of me. It's like, oh, another hockey fan. I can have this conversation
Yeah.
with a person. So even if I hate your guts for the team you root for, there's a bond that like you don't meet necessarily. You're not in hockey territory naturally. So it's something where it's a natural. It's like let's talk hockey, friends, new friend
Yeah.
whose guts I hate or something like
No,
that.
I agree entirely, especially as somebody who plays hockey. Just because I've spent my entire life trying to convince my friends that it's an awesome sport, and it's like never like it never clicks for them until they actually attend a live hockey like NHL game.
Yeah,
Every person that I've ever brought to an NHL game has like immediately been converted.
yeah,
But yeah, it's also it reminds me similarly of like the sort of like Oakland San Francisco rivalry, amongst people in the Bay Area is so enormous. Like people like like there's like fights over it and stuff.
right,
And then down in LA, every time like my family's from Oakland. I didn't grow up in Oakland, but like that's all my teams and everything. And anytime I run into somebody from San Francisco or whatever, it just like immediately feels like you feel that like bit of camaraderie being in like behind enemy lines or whatever.
right. Yeah, that's fair. All
So
right.
hockey gives me the same thing.
Yeah. So let's. I guess we can wrap up here. We can both promote Night Church. I guess.
Yeah, I guess I'll promote Night Church.
Yeah. Why don't you spin Night Church? Because I've not actually talked Night Church on this podcast, but we're both on the same sketch team.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're day oneers.
we are day oneers. There's 12 people on the team. 4 of us were from the beginning. 2 of them are me and Ryan. Uh, Follow us, Hail Night Church, on social media.
Yes.
We're tag teaming this plug right now, but it's
Yeah.
pretty fun.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And
Night
where
Church,
can
yeah, it's awesome. I mean,
it's
we,
great.
unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, our production has halted somewhat, but there's still a pretty substantial backlog of content that you can
Yeah,
watch if you're interested.
absolutely. And if you want to give us money, go for it. We'd happily accept that. That's
We
just
do
begging
have a
at this point.
Patreon that
We do have a
accepts
Patreon.
money.
Yes. But Ryan, where can people find you online specifically?
That's a good question. I'm not really that online. I mean, you can like add me on Facebook or something. I think on Twitter, I'm like my account is like probably Ryan or
Hmm.
something. I like really don't. I go on Twitter to like my sister's tweets, and that's pretty much it. Like, just I gotta be better about that kind of stuff. Um, I mean, if you ever want to see some comedy, you could come watch Night Church once the world opens back up. And I also perform at the West Side Comedy Theater, doing improv, so you can check out Air Force Fun as well.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know. Just like look up at the sky, like on full moons, and just like say something dreamy and close your eyes, and maybe I'll be doing it at the same moment.
Yeah. Ryan is I would say you're the werewolf from Night Church, but there's like a lot of competition for that within
Certainly,
Night
it's a
Church.
lot of hairy white guys on the
Yeah, a
team.
lot of hairy white guys and hairy white guy personalities, if not literally hairy white guys.
It's
All
valid.
right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Ryan. I appreciate it, and have a good night.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for having me, and I miss you.
I miss you too. I do
Hope,
miss you.
hope to
We'll
see
see
you
you soon.
soon.
Yes.
Bye.